record to. So I'm going to kind of see how I can do this where I speak to everybody. Okay, so we are switching to Greek mythology. I'm done with fairy tales, y'all. Done. I could do Greek mythology. You know what? I'm gonna have you move there because I feel like I'm not talking to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I want to talk to you, so I want to feel like I talk to him. Does that make sense? Yeah, because I want to talk to you. I could teach Greek mythology all year long. I love it. So it kind of goes back to what we started in the summer with fables. Remember Aesop? And fables were really short and they were really easy, but you knew the message. It was in your face obvious, right? That's what I love about myths. It's pretty obvious. You know, we don't have to guess. There's no hidden meaning. It's pretty clear what it means. So if you go through your packet, everybody, and this is some of it we're going to talk about, Greek myths are polytheistic. So there are gods and goddesses, right? We get the female component, Adia, which I love. And gods were revered for their strength and their beauty and creativity, their intelligence, but they were immortals. They had supernatural powers. So the supernatural element that we talked about, that's a literary device in fairy tales, is throughout Greek mythology. You're going to see a lot of magic, a lot of, supernatural elements. They were immortal. They lived forever. So they guarded us, the humans who are mortal. We will die. And then they kind of messed with each other, didn't they? They kind of kept each other in check. So thousands of years, over 2,000 years, Greek myths are in age. So I'm going to choose a story today. I don't know if y'all are familiar with this. Are y'all familiar with Baucis and Philemon? Have y'all ever read that story before? Really? Okay, so we're going to talk about hospitality. Okay, so if you scroll down in your packet, everyone, it is page 6 that I want you to go to. Hospitality is defined as the friendly and generous reception and entertainment of guests, visitors, or strangers. And I think we're good at hospitality with people we know, right? Especially people in our ethnic group, right? Come on over. We'll provide dinner. We'll have a party, but I know who I'm inviting. So this is a different hospitality. This is a hospitality towards strangers, towards visitors. In ancient Greek, this concept was called xenia. Generosity, gift exchange, reciprocity, especially towards foreigners and guests. And it was seen as a moral obligation. So if someone knocked on your door, you opened your door, invited them in, fed them, if they needed a place to stay at night, you provided them a place to stay, right? That was hospitality. It was universal. It was a cross-cultural concept. It should be personal. It should be an exchange of gift. You're giving what you have. So our story begins today with Zeus. Who's Zeus, y'all? I mean, he's the king of the Olympians, all right? I mean, he's the head honcho. And he's bored on Mount Olympus. So he brings Hermes, his buddy, down to earth to the land of Phrygia. And they disguise themselves. So what I like about this story is, they kind of went incognito. They disguised themselves as weary travelers. And the story refers to them as bums. What's another word the story used? Bums. Vagrants came to my mind as well. Thank you. Pranav joined us, y'all. Woohoo! Take a seat. Okay, so basically, they don't look like Zeus and Hermes. They look like bums. They look like travelers. Okay, so it's a test. They're testing the humans in Phrygia to see how they'll be treated when they're not in their true, I'm Zeus and this is Hermes guard. Because how would they have been treated if Zeus and Hermes knocked on their door?
They'd be really praised.
I mean, they would have rolled out the red carpet. They would have said, let me feed you our best foods, which would have been, let me give you an idea of what they fed back then. Greco-Roman dishes were lark's tongues, eel pastries, jellyfish, olives and cherries preserved in wine, endive and radish, cheese, eggs roasted on the hearth embers, nuts and figs scattered around, wrinkly dates, plums and apples fragrant, grapes collected from purple vines, probably the best wine. Okay, and I'm guessing they're not going to put them on an air mattress in the game room, right? Yes?
No.
No, they're going to say, oh, Zeus and Hermes, take the master bathroom. Our best is for you, right? So I'm going to tell you that's not what happens in the story. It's actually the complete opposite. Okay? Are y'all ready? Okay.
Can I have a pumpkin? Oh,
Sure.
thank you.
Sure. All right. So, hey, what do you think of my decor?
My English teacher has the exact same spiders.
They're from Walmart. Y'all can get them. They're really inexpensive. My big one's in the other room. I have a giant one. We haven't hung it yet. All right, but we're just getting themed here. So they're in disguise. Are y'all ready? I'm going to read the story real quick. Okay, here we go. Baucis and Philemon, an ancient love story. In the hilly countryside of Phrygia, there grew two trees, which were cause for much amazement to anyone who saw them. You see, one was an oak tree and the other was a linden. Yet the two grew from a single trunk. How did this marvel come to be, and what can we learn from the story? Okay, so this is the only symbolism in the story. It's at the beginning and the end of the story. I want to show you really quickly here. I'm going to share the screen, what this looks like with a video really quickly. Let me move this down. Hello, you're supposed to go down there. There you go. Okay, so let me go to Baucis and Philemon. So right here, if you click, this is our video. And the reason I'm not playing the whole video is because it's only the Baucis and Philemon part of the story. It's not the beginning part of the story. So what I want to try to do here is I want to try to, okay, well, that's an ad. I want to try to go to the end where it kind of shows the ending of the story here. Let me go here. Just an ad. Okay, so it's, no. Thank you. There we go. So this is Baucis and Philemon. Okay, pop that there. Okay, so this is the ending of the story, everybody. And this is what they do. Spoiler alert. This is that couple, and they're changing into trees. Here we go. So this is the image.
Their branches intertwined.
It'll let me go back. Okay, this is, will it let me go back? There, okay, so this is, it will let me go back.
Vines wound round their legs, and canopies flourished
It'll
overhead.
connect once we go.
They bid each
I'll
other
show you what
a
that
loving, last farewell as humans.
turning into trees.
And where Baucis and Philemon just stood, bent with age, there towered a linden and an oak tree, their branches intertwined.
Someone stops you there. Okay, so you get the idea of what these two trees look like.
Yeah.
So how did this happen? Let's find out in the story. So the story just began with that. Okay, everybody, that's what the story just began with. How did those trees come to be? Got it? Okay. Did the visual help, everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Sometimes Zeus, the king of the Olympian gods, would tire of the fun and merriment up on Mount Olympus, and he'd leave his splendid palace to journey down to earth. Disguising himself as a mortal, Zeus would go off seeking fun and adventure. Often on these trips, he would be accompanied by his faithful associate Hermes, the clever and entertaining messenger god. On this occasion, Zeus wanted to see how hospitable the people of Phrygia were. So he and Hermes disguised themselves as poor travelers. Okay, anything that you have color-coded on your digital copy and anything you have highlighted are the answers on your essay today. Okay, so they're very important. They flew down to earth, knocking on the door of any dwelling they encountered, be it rich or poor, large or small. They were unceremoniously turned away everywhere, and nobody would deign to even speak to these dusty and famished-looking souls. Get lost, you bums, they were told, over and over again as the doors were insolently slammed in the gods' faces. Okay, what happens when you anger a god, y'all?
They get mad and start to use powers on you.
Okay, spoiler, This is not going to go well, okay, at all. The inhabitants of Frisia evidently were not too well mannered, and surely they had no time for filthy strangers. Ouch, right?
Yeah.
Do y'all see a little judgment going on already? Are they judgmental?
Yeah.
Oh, so what do you think they're feeling at this point? They're slamming the door because they don't look the part. Do kids do that today? This was 2,000 years ago. Are we judgmental of each
Yeah.
other? What?
Yes, of course.
Of course. Do kids at school treat others differently because of the way they look?
Well, what the hell?
Normally.
Even if it's uniforms, can uniformed kids tell the difference? It's like your tennis shoes or right? Right? Okay. So there's some judgment going on. So if you're slamming the door in someone's face by the way they look, kind of the way, ladies and gentlemen, we treat homeless people. Would y'all agree? Do we think we're better than them?
Kind of.
Do we treat them as beneath us?
Yeah.
Then we think we're better than them. Okay, so what we're all saying is that's a human flaw, right? Okay, now you must understand that Zeus was the guardian of travelers, and all those who sought shelter in a strange land were under his special protection. In his mind, hospitality was paramount, and Zeus didn't like what he saw so far in this rude land of Phrygia. Hermes and Zeus were flippantly dismissed at hundreds of homes, and they at last began to tire of the boorish behavior of the natives. The king of the Olympians grew angrier by the moment, and he determined to punish these discourteous Frisians. Just as they decided to end their journey, the gods came upon a humble little hovel, poorer than any they had seen before, with a roof made only of straw and reeds. Knocking on the door, they were surprised to see it swing wide and hear a voice cheerfully bid them enter. What a different reception, huh?
Yeah.
Welcome, come on in. Stooping low to pass through the small entrance, Zeus and Hermes, still unrecognizable in their disguises, found themselves in a tiny yet cozy and very clean room. The owners of this poor dwelling had done the best with what little they had, this much was clear. In the dim light, they saw a kindly-faced old man and an equally aged woman who appeared sincerely glad to see them. Bustled about the room, trying to make their guests more comfortable, as the old woman threw a soft cover over the bench and told them to rest their tired limbs. The old man kindled the fire so they could warm their chilled bones. What does that show right there?
Kindness.
Yeah.
Generosity.
Generosity. Just, I'm thinking of someone else's welfare and well-being as selflessness, really. The woman was called Baucis, and her husband was Philemon, they told the gods. This humble cottage had always been their home, and they'd lived there happily throughout their marriage. Even though they were poor, they lacked for nothing, for their love for each other. They filled them with the type of contentment that would make a king envious. We don't have much to offer you, but poverty isn't so bad when your spirit is rich and you feel loved, they said with a smile, gazing fondly at each other and apologizing to their unexpected visitors because they had so little to provide them as refreshment. Zeus and Hermes exchanged knowing glances. This was a rare pair of mortals indeed. Perhaps not all Frisians were rude hosts. Philemon raided his meager provisions and brought out some olives, eggs, and radishes, while Baucis boiled a pot of water. He hurried out of their modest garden and came with a freshly picked cabbage. He tossed it into the kettle along with their last piece of smoked pork hanging from the hovel beam. As Baucis set the table for the two tramps, there's another reference to them. So tramps, vagrants, bums, they don't look good. One leg of the table was shorter than the other, so Baucis had to prop it up with a piece of broken dish. Okay, so I just kind of showed you earlier what a Greco-Roman dish would be. So cabbage is very poor food fare, right? They are giving them all that they have, though. Once the feast was ready, Philemon pulled up a couple of ancient chairs and invited the guests to fill their bellies. Here comes the climax of the story. He had a little wine, more like vinegar. It was so sour, saved for a special occasion, and promptly brought it out. Philemon watered it down so that it would last a little longer. The old couple was thrilled to see the late night visitors enjoying the food, and Philemon kept a vigil on their cups, refilling them whenever they would empty. After a while, however, they noticed a miraculous thing occurring. Here comes our supernatural element. No matter how many cups Philemon would pour, the wine pitcher remained filled to the top. Long after the wine should have been consumed, the pitcher was still full. Terror-stricken, Baucis and Philemon looked at each other and bowed their heads in silent prayer to the Olympian gods high above. They suddenly suspected these two haggard strangers were more than mere beggars. With trembling voices, they again apologized for not having much to offer as hosts. So before I finish the story, this is a reference to a biblical scene, the wedding at Cana, where the wine was completely full all the time. It never went empty, but it was also the best wine. Do you think Zeus and Hermes would have been drinking wine that tasted like vinegar and was sour? If they had the mystical power to make sure that the wine never emptied, wouldn't they also have the mystical power to make it the best wine? I mean, are the gods really going to be drinking bad tasting wine, y'all? Okay, so the assumption we can make here, and no, it's not said in the story, but the assumption is it's Zeus. He's not going to drink bad wine. Can we all agree? Okay. So this is just a little humor part of the story. Philemon then said they had a goose, more like a pet to them, truth be told, and they would gladly cook and serve it to their guests. So saying, they zipped around the small room, two aging mortals in vain, desperately trying to catch the goose. They wanted nothing to do with that. Around and round the table they chased the goose, much to the amusement and entertainment of Zeus and Hermes. The panic-stricken bird finally sought refuge on the lap of the gods as Baucis and Philemon collapsed exhausted and panting. So they were ready to kill their goose, their pet goose, to serve it to, because they figured out they were gods. Like, we obviously didn't serve you good enough food. That's also very selfless, don't you think? The time was right. Dropping their disguises, Zeus and Hermes revealed their true identities to their gracious hosts and informed them that they had been kindly entertaining Olympian deities. They commended Baucis and Philemon on their splendid hospitality and informed them they were unlike the rest of their countrymen. We will severely punish this wicked land, along with the ungracious inhabitants, they told the trembling couple. These mortals have forgotten that the godliest act is to offer hospitality to poor strangers, and they shall pay the price for their arrogance. Zeus assured Baucis and Philemon that his wrath did not include them, for they had proven to be kind and giving hosts. He told them to step outside their hut and to look around them. They were astounded to see only water, where once thrived fertile land and grand buildings. A huge lake had swallowed the entire countryside, people and all, and only their humble hovels stood unscathed. Okay, so just to give you a picture, this is like a tsunami or a natural disaster. What happened to the people?
What?
They died.
Correct. He killed them. Wow, that's a harsh punishment, y'all. Can we all agree with that? What happened to the buildings?
Collapsed. The skin.
Yeah. So what happened? Like we have on the news right now, you know, we had a hurricane come in through and it actually made it on land. So it was a very strange hurricane in North Carolina, and it wiped out, you know, a city in North Carolina. What do you do after a natural disaster?
Reconstruct.
Yeah, you reconstruct and rebuild. So the story began with this tree, the linden and oak tree combined, because Frisia had been rebuilt since then. Are y'all with me? So kind of had a flashback at the beginning of the story. Even though their cruel neighbors had been very mean to them, still the kindly couple cried sorrowful tears on their behalf. In a short while, though, another miracle dried their tears. Where once stood their lowly hut, now perched majestically a stately temple, its white marble pillars supporting a roof of pure gold. Wonder of wonders. That's your new home, said Zeus. Now name anything you want. I will be happy to grant your wish. What would most people wish for?
Money.
Me and wealth and some stuff.
Power, prestige. What do you think they're going to ask for?
To live forever. To live together. Like,
Well,
even if they
spoiler, yeah, the tree kind of gave us the answer. Baucis and Philemon whispered briefly among themselves, then bowed their heads to the king of the Olympians, and in hushed voices said their wish was to serve as his priests, living and guarding his temple until the end. The only other thing they asked of Zeus was they should never live alone, but would even die together. Their love was great, and Zeus was pleased to grant their request. For many years, the couple lived in the grand temple, faithfully serving Zeus, growing older together and cherishing each moment of their lives. One day, by now both in extreme old age, they stood outside their majestic home and began to reminisce about their younger days when things were so hard. They knew that they were just as happy then amid the squalor as they were now surrounded by opulence and just as much in love. The memories flooded from them and they reveled at the fullness of their lives. Philemon, this was the video you saw, suddenly saw Baucis putting forth leaves, and the same was happening to him. In no time, bark was growing around them, and they only had time for one last kiss and a joyous cry of farewell, dear companion, before they became trees. But still, they were together forever. You see, the linden and the oak tree grew from the same trunk. Zeus had granted their wish, and people came from afar to marvel at this wonderful tree and to hang wreaths of flowers on its branches. All right. Good story, right? So much. So juicy. Okay, let's go to your outline, everybody. So guess what we're doing today? Are you ready? Gentlemen, grab a pen. And I don't know if y'all can print out a copy at home. It might be easier. I'm going to actually give the answers in class. So if you could print it out or have a notepad where you can answer, I'm going to give you the answers. Yay? Okay, I got 5 minutes. Okay, so you know how we've been doing textual references, right?
Yeah.
And I've been making you summarize them in your own words.
Yeah.
No more. The textual references you're going to use today, I'm going to give you. So I want you to circle 1, 3, and 5. You may use my textual references today. Wait a minute, Miss Hensel. You're giving us the topic sentence, the end sentence, and 1, 3, and 5? What? Miss Hensel, that's so nice. So I expect 2, 4, and 6 to be very detailed, right? This is your explanation. So here's how quotes work. By the way, it's so much easier to use quotes as textual references, but you have to do it correctly. I want you to think quotes is like the middle of a sandwich. You have to introduce the quote, use the quote, and then explain what the quote means, right? So here we go. Body 1 is going to be what the Frisians did. And we all know, spoiler, what their punishment was, right?
Yes.
Textual references in the story revealed why the gods Zeus and Hermes were upset by their poor treatment from almost all of the occupants in the land of Frisia and why they punished them. The people showed their disdain for Zeus and Hermes because they were disguised as poor travelers. Can we all agree with that?
Yeah.
You could even say they judged them if you prefer to say that. You can even change that if you want. Details in the story explained. Here's the quote I used. They were unceremoniously turned away everywhere, and nobody would deign to even speak to these dusty and famished-looking souls. Does that explain how judgmental they were, y'all?
Yeah.
Why?
Yes.
Why?
Yes.
Okay, you're going to answer, why did the people react this way? And the answer I already gave you, they were judging them by the way they looked. And how did they look?
They're poor.
Bad, terrible,
Like
ugly,
homeless
famished.
people. They literally, and I'm going to do the next one, contemptuous words were spoken by the ungracious people. Get lost, you bums. Doors were insolently slammed in the gods' faces. And we already talked about the rest of that answer for number 4. How would they have responded had they known they were gods?
Nice.
They were just come in.
They would just not. They would not.
The exact opposite, literally. Like,
Did they lose an opportunity here, y'all?
Yeah.
yes.
Due to the people's lack of hospitality towards them as two disguised travelers, this angered Zeus. And I want to show why, because he was the guardian of travelers. And all those who sought shelter in a strange land were under his special protection. In his mind, hospitality was paramount. Okay, y'all tell me, what punishment did he enforce on the land of Phrygia?
Death.
He turned the whole thing into
He
drowned it. Like.
Okay, you're gonna go in the story, and it's actually on page 3. A huge lake swallowed the entire countryside, people and all. So it even said water was everywhere where once thrived fertile land and grand buildings. So you're going to basically tell me water is everywhere. It's flooded. It has destroyed all the people and all the buildings and all the fertile land. It's been like a natural disaster came in. Unfortunately, there was a horrible consequence for angering the gods, and the people of Phrygia brought it on because of and if you notice the words arrogance and passing judgment, y'all, make sure that's what you make clear in your answer. Arrogant, judgmental, right? Okay, body 2. This is the easy one. Interestingly, the 2 poorest people in the land, a husband and wife couple, were the only ones to offer sincere hospitality to honor the gods, Zeus and Hermes. From the moment the gods knocked on the older couple's door, their reception was the complete opposite to the hundreds of doors shut in their faces. They were surprised to see it swing wide and hear a voice cheerfully bid them enter. What was the welcome of the couple? And this is on the top of page 2. They walk into this cozy, clean room. They are sincerely glad to see them. They bustle about the room, trying to make them comfortable. The woman throws a soft cover over the bench. The old man, Philemon, stirs the fire so they can chill their warm bones right away. They're being gracious. Number 3, even though the couple were poor, could not offer much, they did give the gods all the best they had. And this is just an example. You know, cabbage is very, very cheap, by the way. Even at the grocery store today, it's like $1.50 to get a cabbage. They had a last piece of smoked pork. So what happened when the couple brought out the wine? This was the miraculous moment. What did it taste like? Do y'all remember?
It tastes like
Vinegar.
Vinegar and sour. And what did they do to make it last longer? They watered it down. Okay, so tell me what happened. When did they figure out they were gods?
When it was like not going away.
Now they
When
would,
it was not going, like the amount wasn't increasing, it always stayed full the picture.
and we can also make the assumption here that the wine probably tasted pretty good. It was probably the highest quality wine. Okay. It was ironic for Zeus and Hermes to find such an extraordinary show of hospitality. And what was really cool was what they wanted. He gave them the freedom to choose any gift they wanted, and their wish was to serve as his priests, living and guarding his temple until the end. And the only thing they asked is they should never live alone, but would even die together. So what happened to the rest of Phrygia, and what happened to the couple? Well, we know what happened to the rest of Phrygia, right? They're probably going to rebuild. What happened to their hut?
It became like a majestic temple.
And what color was the marble?
White.
What color was the
White.
roof?
White.
What color was the roof? They didn't get it.
Gold.
Gold. And
was
what
cute.
happened when they died?
They became trees.
So what were they doing for the trees to grow together like that? They were embracing. Cool, right? The poor husband and wife couple earned the respect of both Hermes and Zeus because of their humility and generous way of welcoming them into their home, which they were rewarded for. Got it? You like my story? Oh, this is a good one. All right. See you guys next week. Thanks for coming online. That's exactly what you should do if you need.